It's ever so easy to do. All you need is a calculator and a tape, and I need my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. Hi, it's Lee from the Japanese Water Gardens. Today's video is going to be a controversial video. It's going to be about when you should be using salt in your ponds. I'm going to try and do all this video by myself. I'm going to involve Matthew in it, which is going to be dead chuffed about that. We're talking about salt in this video. Matthew, what do you think about salt? If you talk to a dozen different people about when and when not to use salt in your pond,
salt in your ponds,
you're going to get a dozen different opinions.
Would be a really good idea.
Some people never use salt. Controversial subject though, don't you think?
It is. A lot of people say don't ever put it in.
They'll tell you that carp are freshwater fish and they don't need salt in the water.
A lot of people say always put it in.
Other people use salt for every ailment that the fish ever get. It's very confusing to know what the truth is. But what I would definitely say to you is,
I think you should probably meet in the middle a little bit.
There are occasions when the addition of some salt to the water can have some very positive effects on the fish. But never ever forget water testing. That's one of the most important things that you should be doing. So how effective do you think it is against parasites in general?
In general, probably not very effective.
If you get yourself a microscope and learn how to take a scrape off the fish, you can choose the best treatment for that particular parasite. Salt is great at treating a wide range of parasites. It's just not necessarily the best treatment for the job. So when would you say is a great time to put salt in your pond?
Great time to put salt in your pond would be springtime. Coming out of winter, you start feeding.
Now the best way to buy the salt is in a big bag, like these ones that we've got out here. This is a 25 kilogram bag of salt. It costs you about 16 quid, and it's the only way that it makes any economical sense to use salt in your pond.
If you're ever going to get a bit of a nitrite spike or something like that, salt will make the nitrite less toxic. It can help the fish that way. So that happens in spring quite often.
Yeah.
Also, if you've messed around with your filters and you think you're going to be a bit of a nitrite spike, then
before you add the salt to the pond, you're going to need to know how much water volume you've got in the pond. Now, a lot of people think that you need to invest in a water meter and it's really difficult to calculate your pond volume, but all you need is a calculator and a tape, and I need my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. It just kind of reduces the toxic effects of the nitrite.
Yeah, it won't take it out. If you're testing for nitrite, it'll still be there, but it just makes it less toxic on the fish. The fish can handle it a bit better.
It makes sure that the fish aren't struggling to get the oxygen out of the water. It helps to, it does something with the hemoglobin in the blood, doesn't it? So I'm going to measure the length of the pond, and we're working in meters. It's 2.2 meters, and the width of the pond, which is 2 meters. And then the depth, 0.9 of a meter.
Also for like bacteria and ulcers, things like that, it can help that, especially if you combine it with like aquaflavin or something like that.
So that's when you've got a fish that's had an injury, you're wanting to give it an opportunity to get better, so you pop it in the pond with some aquaflavin. That's this stuff. And this is the one treatment perhaps that's okay to mix with the salt.
Yeah, it's fine to go with the salt.
I mean, some things definitely need to avoid, like formalin. Don't do it with formalin. And using the calculator, 2 by 2.2 by 0.9, it gives us our answer of 3.96 cubic meters. To convert that to litres, just multiply it by 1,000. 3,960 litres. So this pond is 3,960 litres, and if we want that in gallons, just divide it by 4.5. It gives us 870 gallons. roughly. But what about all this water that I've got in my filter system? Or you might have a pond that's an unusual shape with contours and shelves. For most treatments, and this goes for salt as well, accurately calculating your pond volume is not that important. We just need to get it to within a few hundred gallons. Get a piece of paper, draw your pond. So I'm just sat here editing my video and I realised what I said. 10% would be a better figure, plus or minus 10%, perfectly okay. 200 gallons on a 500 gallon pond, well, you'd be way out. Onto that sheet of paper and work out roughly what parts of that don't exist, and then take it off of your result as a percentage. Does that make any sense? One of the most important things to remember when you're putting salt in your pond is not to combine it with other treatments. And another thing, I wouldn't use a lot of salt if you've got plants in your pond as well, because the plants aren't going to appreciate it. So in this pond we've got roughly 4,000 litres of water, and I recommend that you use 1.5 kilograms per 1,000 litres. Once that salt has gone in, it doesn't easily dissipate from the water. So do plenty of water changes to wash it out before you start using other treatments. 1.5 times 4 gives us 6 kilograms of salt. That might seem like quite a lot, but it's actually perfectly sensible amount to put in. Once you've calculated the amount of salt to add to the pond, just pop it into a bucket, add some pond water to it, and then whisk it up until it's completely dissolved and throw it into the pond. And if any of it settles onto the bottom, just go around with a brush and just dissolve it directly in the pond. It's as simple as that. Salt baths, Matthew, what do you think about them?
Again, if you're moving fish, they can be a good idea before you put the fish into a pond. Also, if you want to treat just that one fish without affecting everything in the pond, salt baths can be a good idea then, especially if you think you might have a parasite and you can't put salt and a treatment in your pond. You could salt bath the fish first and then do the treatment in your pond.
What kind of amount of salt would you suggest?
I'd suggest 3 ounces of salt per gallon of water for up to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So get a bowl next to your pond, aerate it.
Yeah.
For every gallon of water, 3 ounces of salt, dissolve it well, catch your fish up, put it in, keep an eye on the fish. It will almost definitely sort of go a bit pale because it'll irritate the mucous membrane and produce more mucus. So the blacks might go a bit grey, that kind of thing. Don't worry about that. It may even go a little bit wobbly, don't worry about that. But if it starts rolling over onto its side and onto its belly, just lift it out and put it back into the pond, it'll be fine.
I mean, some fish just don't like going into salt, do they? And
most of them cope well with it, but you know, put it in, set a timer for 10 minutes. If it's not coping well with it, just take it out. And if it is, once that 10 minutes is up, take it out anyway.
And I would say always stay with the fish, because occasionally when you've turned your back on a fish and you've got it in salt, they can jump out.
Absolutely, yeah, they may try and jump out the bowl. They don't always like being in it, yeah.
Sometimes you've just got a fish that's just acting a little bit weird and you're not really sure what's the matter with it. You want to do something, you've looked for parasites, can't find them, and you just want to, you feel you must try something. And
after you've eliminated everything else and you've checked for parasites, then salt in the pond or salt baths can be quite a good thing for minor ailments. Sometimes fish seem a little bit just sluggish and off it a little bit, and salt does seem to help work as a bit of a pick-me-up at that stage.
So hopefully that helped to clear up any confusion that you might have with salt, and it's not just added to it. This is actually the last weekend that the koi ponds are going to be open. Over the winter we're going to be doing some maintenance on the ponds. During the winter, of course, the shop will always remain open. It's just out here where we close down. If you'd like to see another video that I did about it, I recommend the one called Salt Not in My Pond. Don't read too much into that title, by the way. And I have put together a little fact sheet with all the doses on it, and I'm going to put a link for it down in the description with this YouTube video. I'm going to say goodbye for now before it starts to get dark. From Lee at the Japanese Water Gardens.